you can see the skill page banner for Laracast. But let's review another example for how we might tweak things for a mobile layout. So if I take a look at Zeppelin, here's the layout we want for mobile devices. Seems simple enough, right? But based upon the order of the HTML, well, let's just see what happens. Here's what we get. So close, but no cigar. We can see a couple things. First, this Laravel skill heading should be at the very top, but at the moment, based upon the order in the HTML, it's actually below this circle chart. Next, we have the stats. Well, it's a slightly different color, but those should be below the little heading right here. But at the moment, and again, according to the order in the HTML, they're right above the button. So how do we handle these things? One option is to duplicate your HTML. This ends up getting kind of tricky, but developers sometimes do it, where they will say, okay, for mobile devices, I want to put this meta information right up here. But then once we get to a large device, we will hide it. And then elsewhere on the page, we'll basically reproduce that HTML and place it down here. And then we'll say the inverse, right? For mobile devices, it should not display, but for large devices, it should. So you're basically doubling the HTML just to get it to show up in two different locations based upon a breakpoint. It's kind of a nightmare to do that. Instead, we're going to use flexbox ordering. So a couple episodes ago, we learned about flex direction and how we can reverse the order. But when you even need more control, well, consider this. Let's take a look at this. Apologies, we don't have too much screen real estate here, but we're going to go to this div right here. So this is the wrapper for all of the content. So at the moment, we have a display of block, but let's set a display of flex, and then I'm going to set a flex direction of column. So yes, a couple episodes ago, we did learn that we could do column reverse, but in this case, it's really not what we want. So I'll stick with column. Instead, I'm going to tweak the ordering of every direct child. And if we take a look at the children, you'll see here we have a skill button that we're hiding for mobile, but then we have the circle chart, we have the heading, we have a description, we have meta information, and then at the very bottom right here, we have the button, which is just below here. Okay, so let's just try something here. We're going to take this Laravel skill heading, and I'm going to use this new order property. Now, if I were to set something like 3, well, what happens? It goes to the very bottom. And I notice whatever I set it to, again, it jumps to the very bottom. 2, 1, what's going on here? All right, well, the issue is the default ordering for any element. So the base value is going to be 0. So that means if I set it to 1, well, that's greater than the default order for every single item. It's not the way you would think, where the default order would be where it naturally occurs in the HTML. That's not how it works. The default will be 0. So you have a couple choices. If I just wanted to take this Laravel skill heading and move it to the very top, I could just set the order to something less than 0, like -1, and instantly it jumps to the top here. So think about the power of this. When in situations where the natural order in the HTML is actually not how you want it to appear for certain breakpoints, this can be massively beneficial. So we could stick with the -1 approach, but if we switch back to Zeppelin, we can see a couple other things, like this little meta information. That should be right below the little message here. So yeah, I mean, we might tinker around here and say order. Well, 1, once again, that's going to push it to the very bottom after everything. So I could do -1 again, and then I'll put it right up here, or -2 to go even further up. But yeah, you can see we're having a little trouble here because we actually want it below the circle chart, but the circle chart has a default value of 0, just like all the other elements. So in these situations, what we can do is be explicit for every single item. And yes, one downside is it does kind of lock your CSS to your HTML. So if you add more direct children here, you'll need to think about that. All right, so let's just figure out the order here. The heading should be the first, so in order of 1. The circle chart is 2. This section right here is connected to the circle chart. The meta information is 3. A description is 4. And the call to action button is 5. All right, let's see if we can make it work. So Laravel skill here will be in order of 1. Now everything's going to look weird just until we set an order for every direct child. Okay, what's next? The circle chart. That's right here. That will be in order of 2. All right. The meta information, let's grab that right here will now have an order of 3. The description will have an order of 4. And finally, the button here will have an order of 5. So now everything lines up perfectly. And of course, we'll still probably need to make a few tweaks here. For example, for desktop, this meta information is white, but for mobile, it's kind of a 50% opacity, something like that. We could select all of that, maybe right here, and set a text. I have a class here called transparent 50, which is incredibly useful, actually, to have various transparent utility classes. So if you ever want to say, set this to 10% of the background color or 50% of the background color, you can see right here, that's exactly what I'm doing. That kind of stuff can be incredibly useful. But yeah, I could even say for mobile devices only, set that. Anyhow, that's beside the point. But yeah, hopefully you can see the huge benefit to this approach, especially when tweaking things for mobile. Now, to the best of my understanding, I don't think Tailwind offers any utility classes for this particular property, so you will need to record that in a traditional CSS file. And that might take the shape of something like this. So if I open up like a banner partial, I could say my series banner, and then for the primary content, for mobile devices, I'm not going mobile first here. Sometimes I find starting mobile first is really useful, and then other times I'm just constantly undoing everything I did for mobile. So in those cases, I'll use a max width to target it directly. Anyways, here we're going to apply flex and then flex call. And then we could either give a class name for each one or do something like nth childs. So yeah, if I were to come back, here's that primary container. Yeah, maybe here. We'll say series, banner, chart. And let's collapse that. Here we have the series banner heading, series banner description, series banner meta, and then finally the series banner button. Okay, so now here we could be a little more specific. Series banner heading will have an order of 1. And then let's see, we're going to have a total of 4. Where the chart is order 2, the meta is 3, the description is 4, and then we have one more. The button is 5, only for a mobile screen. But yeah, not the prettiest way to do it. It would be nice if we could do it in Tailwind. And you know what? Even though it's not provided out of the box, we could add support for that ourselves, including all of the responsive helpers. Fairly easy. And maybe we'll talk about that in the next episode. Until then, if we switch back and give this a refresh, we now have the correct ordering for mobile devices. But if I switch back to desktop, this layout is still rendering as we would normally expect.